So here's the thing. This was supposed to be a video about how much The Old Guard 2 sucked, but I didn't write it immediately after watching the movie because I was in the middle of working on another video. So for days, I was just thinking about it and making my little notes, random little snippets that I have to try and work into a script later, like, and I quote, "For a hot minute there, I thought Joe was cheating on Nikki, and I was like, nah, Joe is dead to me.
Who you texting?
It's my new boyfriend. Come on, let's go to bed.
Ain't nobody gonna hurt Nikki like that." That's how I talk in my head, so you're welcome. And in all my thinking and snippet writing, I started realizing just how awesome the first Old Guard movie really is. And I really wanted to talk about it. So this is going to kind of be more of a compare and contrast than just a straight up review. The first Old Guard movie came out about 5 years ago, and it was pretty well received by viewers, not so much by critics, but that seems to be kind of the way it goes for movies like this. It's based off of a graphic novel, and it feels very graphic novel-y. This is what I was hoping for from The Gorge. There's lots of cliches and over the top badassery, but this movie had something special. It took an idea of this group of immortal warriors, and instead of taking what would have been a very easy path to make a cool looking but very surface level movie, they went deeper. They delved into the dark side of immortality and the toll that that would really take on a person. They focused on developing characters that felt real and interesting even without a ton of screen time. They looked at love and family and the types of relationships you would build if you literally had all the time in the world. And then they slapped some cool aesthetic fight scenes on top of that great base. By comparison, the second movie felt utterly empty. They completely blew any attempt to add depth and heart into the story and made a cool looking but very surface level movie. And it didn't even look that cool. The whole point of this movie is to be a setup for another movie. And I've heard that said about other movies and franchises before, but I've always been like, well, it was still enjoyable. Not this one. The term filler movie has never been more accurate than it is here, at least not in anything I've ever seen. I could hardly tell you what happened in this movie if you asked me. I spent the entire movie just waiting for it to start. Just when it would feel like it was starting to build to something, and I'd be like, oh, okay, here we go. It would kind of. It did expand on the lore a little bit, which I think is really cool, but they didn't do it in a fulfilling way. It raised a lot of questions and didn't give many answers, which mostly just left me feeling frustrated instead of interested. Like I said, one of the things that made the first movie so special was its exploration of immortality. The Old Guard takes a concept that's been done before and turns it on its head by having their immortality not last forever. They never know how long they have. They took a not so original idea and made it original, which is genius. I assume this comes from the graphic novel. I haven't actually read it, but I did order it yesterday, and I am so excited for it to get here. The amount of books on my reading list and movies on my watch list is starting to get a little out of hand. This movie shouldn't have any stakes. It's an action movie where its main characters can't die, but this tiny little detail changes everything. Every time they die could be the last. Death isn't meaningless to them. They worry every time one of them dies, and they have to wait those agonizing few seconds to see if they're going to wake back up again. And this brings a lot of heart and emotion into the movie because we get to see how much it pains these people to see their family hurt, even after thousands of years of healing and coming back to life.
You shot Nikki. You shouldn't have done that.
They also explore the possibility that dying isn't the worst thing that could happen to them. If they're captured, they could suffer for all of eternity, or at least until their immortality runs out. Like Quinn stuck at the bottom of the ocean, drowning over and over again for 500 years, literally being driven insane by the fact that she can't die. But this movie doesn't just stop at exploring the physical ramifications of immortality, it also takes a look at the emotional side. Never dying might seem like a gift, but watching your family grow old and die while you have to continue on living alone forever doesn't exactly sound super fun. Booker has outlived all of his children, being unable to share his gift with them, and he's just over it and wants to die. Andy lost her only friend to a horrible fate and now somehow has to figure out a way to just keep on living. Niall is the new immortal. Her family is still alive, and we have to watch her struggle to let them go, knowing that they're going to grow old and pass on, and she isn't. Nikki and Joe found each other right at the beginning, so they've never had to go through this alone.
We killed each other.
Many times. Yeah.
But by having this couple in the story that have literally always had each other, it really highlights how lonely it must be for Booker and Andy and just how lucky Nikki and Joe really are. beneath the overarching plot of this movie, we have all of these personal struggles that give the movie and the characters depth, and it just works really well. One of the best parts of the first movie for me was Joe and Nikki. I love seeing established couples on screen. Romances and meet cutes are great and everything, but for some reason I'm just like really into seeing solid, healthy couples. Maybe it's because I've been with my husband for forever, I don't know. But I really enjoyed watching their relationship. Despite not having a ton of screen time, they managed to be this really believable and sweet couple. They really felt like a couple that had been together for thousands of years and were still very much in love with each other. In the second movie, their dynamic is different. They have this disagreement over Booker, and then they're just kind of off for the rest of the movie. And I don't think that's necessarily a bad thing. I think it's fine to show parts of their relationship that aren't perfect, but they just didn't give it the time it felt like it needed. And it never really felt resolved, which bugged me a lot. And that was a big problem in other areas of the second movie as well. Everything that should have been an emotional point just felt like it didn't have the time it needed to be properly explored. The tension between Joe and Nikki, Booker transferring his immortality to Andy, Andy and Quinn finally being reunited after 500 years. These were all really big things that should have carried some weight, and yet it all just felt kind of flat. Like the writers had all of this really great material built up from the first movie, and then they just didn't know what to do with it. So they resolved it in the quickest, easiest, and sloppiest way possible. Even with Quinn, they had this opportunity to create this incredibly complex character. She's been on the bottom of the ocean for 500 years. She feels like she's been abandoned by her best friend. She's been driven insane. And yet in the movie, she just feels mildly angry. And her issues with Andy are pretty easily resolved. What a wasted opportunity. I understand that in this movie, the secondary characters, being anyone other than Andy, kind of had to be moved into the background a bit so that Andy and Quinn could be the focus of the story. But in doing so, this movie also loses one of its greatest strengths. And then they wasted the whole Andy and Quinn story anyways. The second movie just does not have the same feeling of family that the first one did. The focus of the first movie is really on this group, and they had such wonderful dynamics and chemistry with each other. There were a couple scenes in the second movie that managed to capture that feeling for a moment, but they just weren't enough.
No one can read Andy.
No, I think I can. Yeah. I left eye twitched the last 2 rounds.
It really did feel like the secondary characters weren't part of this movie at all, and I missed them a lot. Even the action sequences in the second movie were lacking. In the first movie, watching the Immortals fight together was really cool. They moved together so seamlessly, and it was this evidence playing out right before you of all this time that they've spent together and how well they know each other, especially with Joe and Nikki. They don't even look at each other, but they're just so naturally aware of where the other person is, and they move together as a unit. In the second movie, they were just trying so hard to make everything look cool, but it just ended up looking over the top, and again, lost what was so special about the first movie. Considering how poorly this one was... Why is this so hard to say? Considering how poorly this one was received, I'd say it's unlikely that we're going to get a third, which is really unfortunate because despite not liking this movie, I still want to see how it ends. And I feel really bad for the actors. It seems like they were all quite passionate about these movies and gave a lot of thought and effort into their characters and performances. And I feel for them being let down by the sequel like this and likely not being able to finish this story that they care about. Despite the movie sucking, they all were absolutely lovely in it. So those are my thoughts on the Old Guard movies. After 5 years of waiting for a sequel, I am beyond disappointed that this is what we got. I would love to hear what you thought about them down below. If you made it all the way to the end of this video, please give it a big thumbs up and consider subscribing if you love movies as much as I do.